Is it wrong to be charitable and generous? It seems as if lately it is, especially if that philanthropy comes from the wrong person. One only has to point to the actions of J.K. Rowling to see evidence, as her Biarritz Plays Rape Center has been reported on as an act of hatred against trans-identified males, rather than an additional and female-centered service for victims of rape and sexual assault. If she had instead made a shelter just for trans-identified males, it is doubtful that the exclusion of females would have canceled out that act of generosity in the eyes of her critics. But the doubt cast on all of her charitable activities is somewhat expected, given that she has aligned herself against males entering female spaces. Like an infection, anything she touches is now suspect.
Queer news. J.K. Rowling has done it again. She launched a sex abuse service which excludes transgender women both as staff and as service users. The establishment is called Biarritz Place, though it's still unclear how they plan to assure users are not transgender and how they plan to filter out trans people in their hiring process. In an interview with anti-trans journalist Suzanne Moore, who was in support of Biarritz Place, she said, "We believe that women deserve to have certainty that, in using our services, they will not encounter anyone who is male." Rape Crisis Scotland has also released a statement saying, "All rape crisis services in Scotland offer support to trans women and have done so for 15 years. There has not been a single incident of anyone abusing this." So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments.
But what of other philanthropists? One could hardly call Dolly Parton anything but a saint. From the Dollywood Foundation, which has donated free books to children from their birth until their first year of school, to the Buddy Program and associated scholarships, there's a list a mile long with all the good she has done, especially for the area she grew up in, where she has worked to alleviate poverty.
Everybody loves America's country sweetheart, Miss Dolly Parton. Let's talk about what she's done to make the world a better place. She has devoted a great deal of her wealth to educational charities. She always says she comes from a people with horse sense, but growing up, her dad actually didn't know how to read, so there was very poor education going on in the area where she grew up. But to go along with her Dollywood theme park, she also starts the Dollywood Foundation, which includes the Imagination Library that sends a book to little children every month from the time they're born till they start school. You can literally sign your kid up today. She also started a buddy system at her old high school, so if you and your buddy both graduate, you get $500. She just honestly gives me the vibe of like these country women who will shake your hand with some money in it and then be like, "Shh, don't tell nobody." I feel like that is very characteristic of a Southern grandparent. She just sees needs and feels them. Like if babies at the local hospital need surgery that their parents can't afford, she just pays for it. Not to mention her funding the COVID vaccine to save the human race, literally. These are just a few of the things she's done publicly, and I'm sure there's way more that she does privately. We just love her. Like she's just good.
However, recently, Dolly Parton has been accused of white saviorism because her Imagination Library, which has operated for the past 30 years and now covers the UK, Ireland, Canada, and Australia, reinforces notions of white privilege and heteronormativity, and does not represent enough cultural diversity, disability, trans, and bisexual gender identities and non-traditional family structure, according to a recently published paper by speech and language pathologist Jennifer Stone at the University of North Carolina. The paper argues that Dolly Parton's philanthropy is potentially dangerous, oppressive, and that themes of good parenting and family subjugate children and privilege a white middle-class, cisgendered, heteronormative, able-bodied norm. Of course, few people in the real world would agree with this sentiment. Once free of the hug bubble of academia, it is apparent that giving free books to children in several countries is almost universally considered a positive action. So, what was the point of such a critique?
I know a lot of people who read way more than I do, and I also know a lot of people who don't read at all. I mean, they haven't read a book since college, essentially. To me, it's almost like the amount I get from it, it's almost like a secret weapon, where when I think, in 200 or 300 or 400 pages, which I can read in, 10 days or however long it takes reading 30 pages a day, the amount of information, insights into so many aspects of the human psyche that I can get, it's sort of like, it's not like I'm in a competition for anything in particular with anybody. I just do my show. But it's sort of like, if I'm reading dozens of books a year and you're reading zero, I'm exposed to so many different things and ideas that are not even in your universe. It just seems like the power of reading just seems overwhelming.
Reading is an important skill and hobby. Not only is reading comprehension important for any academic success, but it fosters critical thinking and creativity. Reading allows one to learn not only facts but open-mindedness. To experience secondhand what someone completely different from the reader might believe allows for greater understanding of other viewpoints. It also allows for learning cultural values. We teach children to listen to their parents, to not lie, to share, to value family and more through fairy tales and other similarly simple stories. Controlling information starts with controlling what is read, both in fiction and in nonfiction, such as the news or scientific reports.
I would say reading is the strongest signal for success in the future that I've ever seen. It is the strongest. When you are a great reader, you can articulate and speak and command the English language in ways that other people cannot. And people think you're a lot smarter than you are, lots of times, because you're a great reader. Have you ever met a person who was a great reader when they were young who was not successful? You never. It is the absolute best foundation ever in life.
What Jennifer Stone wanted wasn't to dissuade Dolly Parton from her charity. Even she had to know that is a fruitless endeavor. What she wanted was to find a way to influence what young readers have access to. She wants an in to influence the foundation to include books that reflect her politics. The use of inflammatory words, white savior, racist, privilege, heteronormative, all of them are used as a verbal provocation meant to elicit compliance to approve them. Obviously, if you aren't racist and heteronormative and a bigot, you will listen to her demands and include diverse books. While one might assume that such a way of thinking is constrained to just academia, who no one really takes seriously anyway, the recent popularity of sensitivity readers illustrates how widespread the issue is.
Tip from a sensitivity reader: remove the words crazy and insane from your manuscript. Instead try wild, incensed, unreachable, unreasonable, unfair, nefarious, or cruel.
So something I just want to say about working with a sensitivity reader and why I'm so glad that I did it is the fact that some of the things that they catch are just so innocuous. Things that you would just never even think about. For example, in my book, one of the main characters at one point disguises themselves and they're non-binary and they specifically made themselves look male. And the narrator of the book notes this, that it seems like they are specifically changing their gender so that they can, hide a little bit better. But when I did this in the description, I used the word boy, not male. And I wasn't even thinking about it, but my sensitivity reader pointed it out and was like, ooh, do they have to be disguised as someone underage? And I was like, oh, they're not supposed to be disguised as someone underage. I forgot that boy is as much an indicator of age as it is of gender. And it's innocuous things like that a reader might have read and been like, oh, that's weird, why are they underage? But would have entirely not been my intention whatsoever. And this is just one of the many reasons that I think sensitivity readers are great.
Not only is there a desire to control what children read, but even authors for an adult audience are subject to scrutiny because any conflict or bigotry or a potentially offensive portrayal, regardless of if it serves a purpose to the narrative, is wrong to an audience that is incapable of understanding nuance. There is far more weight given to saying the right things than to doing them, because the audience that can ruin a career is too simple to interpret more than surface-level debate. Take, for instance, the recent hullabaloo around JKR's old review of Lolita. If you are unfamiliar, the story is about a pedophile, and the draw comes from Nabokov's ability to make a tale of abuse sound like a love story, because that is how his unreliable narrator views the situation.
Have you ever heard of the book or read the book Lolita?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Talk about a book that so many people get wrong. The whole point of the book is this narrator is manipulating the reader into thinking that this relationship is normal or fine, and that he's not being this young girl. And it's this long book, and he uses all this great prose to manipulate the reader into thinking oh yeah, it sounds like he's totally with it, and he's kind of justifying everything that he does. But the whole point of the book is to see how manipulated we can be by literature.
Right.
And I could see people read that book and get totally the wrong take on it, where it's yeah, this can be justified. Totally. This is right. So I can imagine a reading Lolita and thinking yeah, this is exactly why we can justify.
They missed the whole point of it because they're identifying with the things that they want to hear. I think a more relatable perspective, it's just a human nature to be affected by propaganda. I mean, if you look at the media, just like the news, the government, and all the things that are put out by the major news outlets and things like that, it's very easy to get sucked into their narrative.
As reported in the Free Press, in the year 2000, in an interview with BBC Radio 4, Rowling praised the novel, saying, "A plot that could have been the most worthless pornography becomes, in Nabokov's hands, a great and tragic love story." If you have read the book, it is apparent that it is quite the point. Nabokov's prose is meant to distract from the disgusting abuse Humbert Humbert places upon Dolores Hayes. However, the demographic most likely to parrot trans women are women when confronted by issues such as immutable genetics or sexual assault statistics appears utterly confounded not just by the difference between depiction and endorsement, but by the expression of any thought that contains two or more moving parts. At the risk of stating the obvious, Rowling's praise for the transformative power of Nabokov's writing does not amount to an assertion that she found the plot of Lolita literally romantic. It's like when Oscar the Grouch sings his signature ballad about loving trash. Surely, we may admire the artistry, the imagery, the cheeky rhyming schemes, without sharing his passion for the garbage itself.
So I learned recently that J.K. Rowling apparently considers Lolita to be a tragic love story. This is apparently from her, and let me just read it. "There are two books whose final lines make me cry without fail, introspective of how many times I read them, and one is Lolita. There is so much I could say about this book. There isn't enough time to discuss how a plot that could have been the most worthless pornography becomes, in Nabokov's hands, a great and tragic love story, and I could exhaust my reservoir of superlatives, I don't know that word, trying to describe the quality of the writing." Also, this part, yeah. It's funny how she says that about Lolita when she is a part of the Protect the Children group. Like, it's funny, but it's really not. Also, this is not about J.K. Rowling, but about Lolita. Lolita is really a great litmus test on how people view pedophilia. And I really mean that.
The decision to fixate on a quote from nearly a quarter century ago in an effort to paint Rowling as a long-standing bigot also illustrates how the narrative around gender ideology and modern leftism is intertwined with a dedication towards preserving image over all else. When your own actions can only ever be attributed to personal gain, be it monetary or just socially, then it becomes second nature to assume that everyone else operates the same way. Those charitable donations? No, those aren't because the donator in question cares about poverty, but because they wish to impress their ideology on others. All the actions you never considered wayward until after the author said something you don't agree with are suddenly suspect. There is no room for shades of gray. Like a child, there is an underlying belief in gender ideology that is black and white morality. You are good or you are evil. You are with us or you are against us. Under this mindset, others in the public eye often feel the pressure to give lip service to or vocally support whatever is in vogue and will protect them against any future faux pas. Quite simply, if you align yourself with gender ideology, then you are given more wiggle room than a person who stayed silent. You can see this through Nicola Collin, the actress Penelope Featherington from Netflix's Bridgerton series, who must have thought that the best way to capitalize on her spotlight season was by releasing a song shortly after. If it was just a song, a regular mediocre pop song, perhaps I wouldn't have even noticed. However, this song includes such wonderful lyrics like,
"This one is for all the wee lesbians, all the girly pops.
The they, the them, the she, the frilly tops.
Have you ever noticed that transphobes have really shitty hair? That's karma, bitch."
Despite playing a lesbian in Dairy Girls and being a vocal, quote-unquote, ally, she is not, in fact, a lesbian, which makes the line odd considering the common conflation of lesbian with transphobe due to a lesbian's inability to be attracted to men, regardless of their gender identity. Her focus on the appearance of so-called transphobes is also quite telling, and ironic given her many interviews where she focused on her own appearance regarding playing a romance role. It seems more like this wasn't in support of lesbians, but rather a sign that she is one of the good ones, that she has the right politics and the right beliefs. Meanwhile, alongside stars like Nicola, David Tennant can tell a black woman to shut the hell up because she doesn't agree with him that men can become women.
I suppose if I'm honest, I'm a little depressed by the fact that acknowledging that everyone has the right to be who they want to be and live their life how they want to live it, as long as they're not hurting anyone else, should merit any kind of special award or special mention, because it's common sense, isn't it? It is human decency. We shouldn't live in a world where that is worth remarking on. However, until we wake up and Kemi Badenoch doesn't exist anymore, I don't wish ill of her, I just wish her to shut up.
And Neil Gaiman, who is now facing accusations of sexual misconduct, has been defended because supporters think it's all a trick by the horrible, nasty TERFs due to his relation to Tennant and his support. Never mind that Gaiman admitted that he did have sexual relationships with women far younger than him, where he held power over them. Never mind that the left is supposed to believe victims. No, because the man is related to another man who thinks men can be women, he gets the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps the core issue of leftist spaces is inauthenticity, as image is worth so much more than actions ever are. The result is a lack of understanding of philanthropy or genuine selflessness, because grifting and lip service are so much more common and valuable. This, dear viewers, is where we part. I read this article and I love Dolly Parton. I love country music. We've gone over this. I made a video about it. I love country. But I love Dolly as a person because she has done so much great work, and I think that shows the difference between people who are born into wealth and those who earn it and come from low places and manage to make that money. They tend to give the money back to their roots, where they came from. And you can see that in Dolly. You can see that in JKR. You can see that in so many different stars. And the thing is, people like to criticize these actions, but what the hell are you doing? There's always this, well, I believe I posted, okay, your Instagram post and your internet argument didn't actually help anyone or do anything. All you did was add to the noise of the internet, and none of that actually helped a person in need. So until people who want to make all these criticisms and critiques and complaints actually start doing activism in the real world, I think that people should shut the hell up about it. By all means, feel free to critique, but your words mean nothing to me if you haven't done jack shit. Anyhow, if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.